ABBA. 8. Testimonials, questions and answers. October 30, 2018. Well, ABBA expresses himself in the heart of each person's heart, in the resonance of love, in the resonance of the Absolute, and in the resonance of the One. Beloved children of One, we will therefore continue our conversations, our testimonies, our questions. I'm listening to you. Question. Beloved ABBA, I would like to know what you think about watching pornography and the people who watch it. Thank you for your answer. Beloved, everything related to the sexual sphere can be considered, by schematizing, in two aspects. The transcendental side leading to the heart, especially given the current circumstances of the earth, and, of course, everything related to addiction, to urges. This corresponds to the initiation of certain activities called the lower chakras. Anyone who is free of any desire, any passion, any addiction, can, of course, look at what he likes. Addiction is something else. It reflects the persistence, despite the vibratory state that can be experienced, of certain drive elements. But I reassure you, the simple fact of asking the question simply shows that you are aware of this. ABBA has nothing to think about. The main thing is the light you give to it through your experience, what satisfaction it gives you, or what is the shameful element that can possibly bother you through it. Obviously, beyond the possible pathology, there is always somewhere this notion of lack, this notion of being incomplete, which is in fact the true truth of addiction, whatever it may be. So ABBA thinks nothing of it. Everyone is free, everyone today sees himself, at the height of his perception, at the height of his experience, and at the height of the reactions he lives in him with regard to his addictions. I have nothing to think about, to condemn, or to encourage, simply, as you observe, to be like you. Not to give you an opinion or judgment, but to clearly ask yourself what is happening in the intimacy of this sexual drive. From now on, and I take this opportunity to explain very briefly, the sexual act, because of the primary anomaly, most often remained at the level of the sexual sphere. Many of you have lived a different sexual relationship in recent years, even without experiencing the notion of the twin flame, where energy and consciousness, instead of focusing on what is called the two lower chakras or chakras, went up to the heart. The sexuality called sacred or tantrism, no matter what you call it, even in the Taoist alchemy of sexuality, is an exchange. This exchange is neither violence, nor gift, nor reception, but the profound alchemy from one to the other that leads, beyond pleasure, to the fullness of the heart. This should be the case for all sexuality, as soon as the primary anomaly is no longer present. Thus, living sexual intercourse at the heart level ends the impulse, ends the desire, but leaves a sexuality that I would describe as free, which is not induced by the impulse, by desire, or by some lack or dissatisfaction, but is only the holiness of the heart. Of course, there is no question of affirming that anyone who is able to experience this today, because of the very behavioral habits that have been developed extensively within this living world through sexuality. The fact that we can talk about it freely and propose this kind of question shows that the shameful aspect of it has disappeared. And indeed, there is no point in conceiving any shame, or even, I would say, any guilt or responsibility. All the distractions in this world, whatever they may be, are there only to entertain you, and in a more occult way, if I may say so, to avoid you thinking about the essential, that is, who ye are. That is what is important. It is not even addiction itself, whatever it may be, but much more what it reflects in terms of a certain lack, which is no longer an injury today, but just a habit, and that, I might add, into some addiction. From the moment you rely on your heart, from the moment you rely on what you really are, even if it is unknown to you, given the current circumstances of the earth at the level of light, most often allows you to overcome these problems without effort, without difficulty, face to face with yourself. Remember, and especially since a few days beyond joy, this joy is superimposed on your state of personal mood, whether it concerns addictions, impulses or unresolved conflicts, it does not matter, because the light through its intelligence, as soon as you release yourself the guilt, responsibility or notion of being involved in it, I remind you that the addiction concerns only the person, but does not concern what you are in truth. So if you are truly who you are, beyond any barrier and form, if you accept this principle, even without living it, there is no reason why any addiction should continue beyond some time. The intensity of the light, the intensity of the lighting experienced on the scene of this world, individually as well as interactively, as at the societal level, as at the political level, as at any level, as I have told you, replaces the relationship with resonance and reliance. And so sets in motion, without your knowledge of your own free will or without your own perception, the heart-to-heart relationship, which is the only one that is true, just, eternal and which will never pass beyond the worlds. Beloved, you can continue. Question. Beloved ABBA, I thought I heard Jean-Luc Ayoun say earlier that when we are in the Absolute, we can play. I thought we would be like in a kind of trance of joy where there is only calm, where nothing happens. Is this the case? Thank you in advance for your answer. All the games within the creation have been played, without exception, by each of you. Being one in the other, the timelines you have borrowed, which you call your past lives in this world, have no more substance than the illusion of this world. The laws of the soul implied by the icons are not the laws of the spirit. Truth does not know karma, truth does not know the soul, truth does not know a world and knows no history. Truth will set you free, truth will free from any need to express the experience of consciousness, because you have already gone through it in its entirety, in all dimensions and in every world. It happened outside time and space, at the initial moment, we must call it that, the first impulse of consciousness. You do not have to worry about anything, I have said it again and again, insofar as when you experience this state of beatitude, this state of beatitude, this state of beatitude, which even transcends the joy linked to the body and to what you experience in this world, within you, will simply no longer exist. There can be no lack, there can be no desire, from the moment that beatitude and stashes are recorded, of envy, of desire for anything concerning any world or any origin or stellar lineage. The loop is closed, the Alpha has joined the Omega, as I said differently, the film is rewound and you arrive at the beginning of the film. The film is what it is rewound. It is not about destruction or decreation in the sense that you could hear it as a person, since creation was a dream and this dream took place outside of any time and space, having been impacted at the level of different layers of consciousness, thought and density. From then on, these kinds of questions, as previously concerning the end or the new earth, no longer represent any interest, as soon as you experience even a fleeting joy, at times, even if only moments of peace that do not correspond to any circumstance of your lives and yet are indeed there, then at that moment, the light, individually, has won. It has already won collectively, it has already been many months or even years since we told you that everything has been accomplished, that the earth had been liberated, that the ascension of the earth had begun. Now you are in the reality of this world, living it. Do not worry about anything else, as I said before, except the present moment. Try to make yourself available and free for the moment, whatever your occupation, find time for yourself and that's enough. Everything else, I repeat, not to convince you, but to encourage you to test by yourself the reality that everything is automatic and that everything is spontaneous concerning the light. This is not the case, of course, in your person's activities, but do not mix the two. Even if it is within this person that both are realized. The two are joined, as I said, but you need to understand well within your life, in the course of your days, that what is of the ordinary order is as rewarding as moments of peace, as moments of beatitude. You will no longer be able to make any difference, the more days will pass, between the ordinary, the ephemeral and the eternal. You will be reunited through this body to yourselves, to the truth and to the absolute. It will be synchronous for all of us from the moment the event occurs. Everything else is only a projection, everything else today, in relation to joy, is absolutely useless to you. That is why we have always insisted on simplicity, on humility, on evidence and transparency, on the four pillars of the heart, on the fluidity of unity, in short all these words that have been proposed to you, which are not concepts, but an experience that was to be lived then as now. There is nothing other than the present moment, there is nothing other than love, there is nothing else needed. Because that is where you are at home, even if the conscience today can still hesitate, even if it perceives it, can still rebuff or divert it. This diversion cannot last long, because the evidence of love is imposed on everyone, in a lived way and no longer in concept, and no longer through religions, teachings or groups, or anyone else, but in oneself. Whether it is in a couple, whether it is in some relationship, I have said it and I repeat it again, the relationship becomes resonance, the relationship becomes reliance, it is not a communication, but actually a matching between the ephemeral and the eternal, between each ephemeral, between each eternal. This is how, as I said, you make the event happen on your own. It is not an action, it is not a will, because you cannot find any will in it, except by setting yourself in the will of the light, that is, by disappearing from yourself, at the level of any will whatsoever, that is, it could be called trust, faith, certainty, but it is only the truth, raw, bare and obvious. Everything else is just passing through, your life, your thoughts, your relationships. Resonance, on the other hand, makes it possible to put an end to the myth of creation. That's what you do yourself, that's why it's inexorable. For whoever has tasted even of joy or peace, or now beatitude or beatitude, can still ask himself questions about any future. The present moment fills everything, it is filled with love, it is filled with life, it is filled with truth. Everything else can only be wrong, even at the level of history, even at the level of events. The major event is the resurrection. Even if this event, which began more than 10 months ago, has not yet been fully recognized for all of humanity. You have nothing else to worry about but aligning yourself at this moment, aligning yourself with yourself, beyond any archetypal reference, not to forget them, not to deny them, not to neglect them, but to, I would say, accomplish the totality of your freedom that depends neither a savior, nor on a creative mother, nor on ABBA, nor on anyone else. This is the face-to-face of truth, which goes far beyond simply confronting who you really are and who you believe you are, but which restores the naked truth. Everything else is just a stage of the theater, of this world or any other world. But I remind you, you are neither the actor nor the spectator, and there is no theater. It was a game and you can only conceive it like that. There will be absolutely nothing missing for anyone at the completion of stasis. No one will be able to oppose the truth, for truth is absolute jouissance, for truth is eternity and truth will never pass away. You had simply forgotten it by what had happened in the historical circumstances of this earth. But it could never permanently take that away from you. Because even within the confinement, life is present. Even within the confinement, beauty is present. The confinement was more at the level of your thoughts, your conceptions and therefore translated into your creative potential within this world as a reality. It is this reality that the econs led and which also brought you, whatever one says, to this awareness, of the suffering of this world, of its illusion and which made you hope for a better world, which allowed you, in a way, to set you on the path of vibration, on the level of thoughts, towards this present moment. Today, it is accessible in its entirety, without any prerequisites, without any conditions, at will. That is freedom. And freedom is nowhere else, because it is total here. It does not depend on you, it does not depend on any event, any world, any intergalactic confederation of the free worlds, any savior, any master and absolutely nothing external to you, since I repeat, everything, absolutely everything that concerns life, creation, the dream of creation as well as the archetypes whoever they are all without exception present in you since always. Beloved. Question. ABBA, can you explain to us this desire that affects many of our sisters and brothers at this time, that have not been comfortable in any of the inhabited places, in any place, in a more or less definitive way? Beloved, there is only one dwelling, that of absolute beatitude. Everything else is just a place of passage. Of course, now that the truth is present, even if you are not yet living it on the surface of this earth, the zero field of zero time is accessible to everyone. And even if you do not perceive it, even if you do not experience joy, of course, there can only be a feeling of not being at home, even if you're alive, even if you're alive. This feeling is very real. It is not intended to make you leave the place where you are, certainly not, nor to make you live that you are at home nowhere else but in your heart, where there is only love. It is the only truth, it is the one you are facing at this moment, that you are discovering, that you are living, that you are accepting, or that you are seeking. The world is only the result of love, even within its confinement, despite suffering, despite everything else. It is by living this that you recognize yourself in this, and that you can never judge again, that you can never condemn again, that you accept the freedom of each person, and that you cannot be locked up, neither a relationship, nor in a place, nor in anyone, nor in any movement whatsoever. True freedom already begins with the lightening of everything that was dense in this world. Many of you have been living this awakening for more than 30 years. But awakening is not the truth. In fact, you were awake, you had simply forgotten it. This is what is natural and what is being revealed today. And you realize that. Until recently, countless speakers supported you, marked out your path, your vibration and your experience. It was essential, since the beginning of this year, that each of you find yourself entirely within yourself, without seeing in an archangel, in a geneticist mother, something external to you. All the pedagogy and strategy of the intergalactic confederation of the free worlds and the light, has only played this game. It is to get closer and closer to the essential every year, to show you that you were not only this body, to accept that you were never this body and that you were never in any world. This revelation is brutal for many of you today, but this revelation is not an external revelation. It is not because I say that you must adhere to it, it is because you are living it and there is no other alternative, that you can only understand it by living it and not before. It is in this sense that there is no point in wanting to dialogue, discuss or exchange, but rather to enter into silence, resonance and reliance, in order to transcend and magnify the relationship, whatever its nature. It's the only way to find freedom. Whether it concerns the loved one, whether it concerns the enemy, whether it concerns the child, the parent or all the circumstances of life in the ephemeral. You have nothing to run from, you have nothing to leave, except yourself, as a person and as a story. Beloved, continue. Question. Can we consider that we are on the seventh day of Genesis, a day most often translated in churches as "and God rested it"? Laughs. But whose translation would be rather "and God withdrew it," according to IDADE Susanal? Voice. That's a question. God cannot take this away. The God, I'm not talking about Yaldabaoth Barrett, of course, I'm talking about the principle of light. There is no God. Nevertheless, God cannot remove it. I use the God not in the Western sense, but in the original sense. It's a pseudo-creator. There can be no creator. Even ABBA has never been a creator of anything. It simply accompanies creation, like each of you, nothing more and nothing less. So there is no question about it. God is everywhere, the light is everywhere, just as you are from everywhere, since you are also and you are as much the other as you are. And above all, you are as much your worst enemy as you are. To accept this, to live it, is to be free. That's why Jesus said, if you are hit, turn the other cheek. That's why he said that you had to forgive your worst enemies and, above all, love them more than others. Because they are only you at other times and they're only there as a pretext, in your own acting. Nothing more and nothing less. But you can't see it in the moment, except by being inserted in the present moment. You can only see it with delay, which of course creates suffering. Because in the meantime, before you recognize this, you nourish thoughts, an animosity, which is natural and normal in this world, but which has no meaning in the truth. So let me not answer this concept or this question, because it comes from the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. Before the Word, what was there? Nothing. Nothing. All of this. The creation is not linear, there is no seventh day. This is simply symbolic. Of course, the number 7 is related to specificities. But let me not get into numerology or number symbology. You don't need this anymore. You just need the truth, because it is it that frees you and makes you free from any concept, any form, any question. Be alive, follow the most fluid lines, accept what life offers you, assuming, even if you are not sure, that what ultimately happens is neither good nor bad, that it is only the external view, through the suffering experienced, that makes you say these words. If you didn't suffer from it, you wouldn't even see it. In the midst of beauty, in the midst of truth, beyond this enclosed world, there is no suffering. Life is beauty. And this, to quote also what a sister artist said earlier, cannot leave any bitterness. Because what you think you have not experienced, through projections on a new earth and a new world, has already been experienced. There is only the present moment, there is only zero time. Everything else has only passed through and is now passing right here in this world. The truth will set you free, it sets you free. It frees you from the illusion of being a person, the illusion of being part of one universe and not another. It has allowed the game to reach a certain stage, but every game must end one day. You're all the games, and you have gone through them all, without exception. And this is now being revealed. In full. Beloved, let us continue. Voices. Are there any oral questions? Otherwise I will continue with other written questions. So, it is a testimony. Last night, I dreamt that I was pregnant, ready to give birth, while at the same time, the ABBA at the heart level was very active, as were their sounds. Thank you. Is that a testimony or a question? Voice. It is a testimony. All right. Childbirth, of course, is symbolic, it is the birth of yourself. Childbirth in the matter is done through the cervix. Birth in truth concerns the heart, but also that causal sphere, that is, the throat chakra. I have nothing else to add, this downward birth is only the translation of the birth that will happen, of the truth, which you are already experiencing. The brain, the ephemeral consciousness, the dream consciousness, will bring you symbolic images. As you know, countless of you are dreaming of special things right now. Even those who no longer dreamed, sometimes dream. On the contrary, those who had dreams that I would describe as nonsense, reflected only in the past day or even the coming day, have no substance. Those who dreamed a lot dream less, those who did not dream a little, it is only a dream, but it still informed you of what is happening in the alchemy of your heart, in the fusion of being and non-being. We can continue. Testimony. Hello ABBA. I have been listening to you and reading you for a long time. I believe I am a spiritual seeker who has no preferences to the path to follow, only the information that gives me back my freedom, joy, life. I only keep what resonates in me, what speaks to my heart. If I understood correctly that this quest was only an escape from a painful and difficult reality, I do not give up discovering who I am. Many veils have fallen, I feel the various vibrations, sometimes intense, that you describe, as soon as I am in silence or I have visions that are not understandable. But I don't give any importance to any of this. You're quite right. Testimony, continued, and question. I have to admit that I do not experience joy, that I have not had the ounce of ecstasy or beatitude. The various testimonies only heighten a feeling of exclusion. What have I not seen, heard, understood? Nothing at all. Question, continuation and end. Where is my responsibility? It's already been said, simply, the time limit is yours, there is no competition, there is no first, there is no last. in the kinetics of the opening of consciousness, present in quotation marks for more than 30 years, for exactly 34 years now, has seen different scenarios occur. As explained, you each have a different timeline that joins time zero. More and more of you are joining the zero time, so don't worry, there too you will check it very soon, but I advise you only one thing. Stop thinking of yourself as a spiritual seeker, accept yourself as the ineffable truth of beauty, not dependent on any world, any circumstance, any vibration and any vision. It is also appropriate for you to go through this, because the vision is ephemeral, because the vibration that led you to spiritual-consciousness and removed the veils does not allow you to remove the last veil. The veil, the ultimate veil, is linked only to sacrifice and resurrection. That doesn't mean that you didn't sacrifice yourself, it doesn't mean that you didn't understand something or experience something. Accept that everything is strictly in its right place. And moreover, the testimonies of all the brothers and sisters, of course, that you hear, are not there to arouse any jealousy or any question as to why this is not lived, but to create precisely this temptation towards abandonment and, as I said, by the resonance that is taking place now, to light up your personal interdimensional merban. And at that moment, you will no longer ask yourself the question of vibrations, you will no longer ask yourself the question of what you live or do not live, you will be life, and that is enough. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Participant. What about how to embrace a permanent suffering that takes up all the space and attracts attention all the time? Beloved, I will answer very simply and here, in a very practical way. Suffering, for many, must be overcome. Of course, for many of you, you wonder when you have chronic suffering, especially when it affects the body and consciousness itself, as you say. Today it is very simple, you have the possibility to do so by remaining at rest, and I had the opportunity to explain it concerning the naked consciousness, but I explain it today not for the naked consciousness but for the truth accessible to everyone. From the moment you are motionless, careless, in a lying position, all you have to do is cross your legs at the ankles, in any direction, to reactivate the flow of the wave of life located under your feet and going up to the sacrum. You can possibly use your two palms of hands placed flat on the doors of the groin folds, precision and depth. You have nothing to ask for, simply to let the plane of vibration, the plane of light intelligence, unfold, and you will be immediately connected to the heart. On the other hand, the mechanism that you describe as a kind of interrogation concerning the experience of brothers and sisters is not there for a competition or to measure oneself, or to compare oneself, but simply to enter into the mechanism that I have been talking about for 2 days, the reality, the phenomenon of resonance and reliance. Resonance and reliance, in other words, make it possible to install in the heart of the other both being and non-being from the moment you let go. You have always been told that it was you who were taking this last step, but enough of you today have realized and are living this last step, that there is contamination, as I said. What was true a week ago is no longer true today. Because now, from the moment you let go, from the moment you remain motionless, silent, in one of the techniques I have just given you now, then the truth can only be revealed. From the moment you do not question and from the moment you do not remain in meditation, but you manage to remain in spite of the suffering in this state of emptiness of the body, where the proprioception, as I had explained, that is to say the perception of your body, extinguishes itself, whether by vibration, whether by fire or by the absence of signals informing you of the position of your body, from then on, the light can work without you and without person. Since this is what you are both the light and you are both anterior to the light. There is no need for anything else, no spiritual quest, no energy, no vibration, no words, no nothing. Indeed. It's not a pun. There's no need for anything. As much as you think you need something, you can't live it. That's the sacrifice. and the fact that you have countless brothers and sisters who have lit this resurrection, whatever the stage, makes you see not something that is far away, not something that you do not live, but simply something that you have not recognized. And to recognize it, you just have to disappear from yourself. And when I say disappearing from myself, it is not a matter of attacking my life or changing some external circumstance. I have given you a very simple little recipe that is not a protocol or a ritual. Remain motionless for a few moments, cross your ankles with your legs extended, possibly place your palms on the folds of the groin and let it be what it is, that's all. The Merkaba, moreover, is personal and interdimensional, and is active among an ever-increasing number of brothers and sisters. It is not the vibrations corresponding to the stars, it is simply the deployment of the 4 Hakadesh by the 4 elementary triangles. But no matter what the names are, the important thing is that you live the consequence of that, and that you are not only interested in vibration, visions, energy or anything else. The more you accept to be naked, without visual support, without vibratory support, without energy support and without any frame of reference or knowing, you are free from this moment, and it is instantaneous. Do not distance yourself from what you believe you are and what you really are. Do not see it as a path or a quest, but really and concretely as an abandonment to the light, as a relaxation. Avoid the word sacrifice if it frightens you, since most of the resurrection occurs before the sacrifice. The resurrection lets you spontaneously to sacrifice through lighting. You are not even your conscience or that of this person, or even superconsciousness. You are at the origin of consciousness, that is joy, that is beatitude and beatitude. No vision can lead you there, no vibration can lead you there. Only what you are is revealed to you. So this is also a question, as Badi would say, of point of view, of location from where you look and where you live. I have said it and I repeat it again, everything that has helped you in terms of what you call spirituality, even if it has been real and concrete, even if, for example, the historical data, the vibratory data that you have experienced, whether by this way or by other means, have been useful, but at some point, as you know, what has been useful, even within the ephemeral, is no longer useful. Because everything happens and you, on the other hand, you never do, that's what you have to do, that's what you have to experience. But you can't embarrass yourself with any concept for that, and especially no visions, especially no vibrations, just what you are, there, right now, stripped of everything. Because it is by being stripped of everything, by accepting to be nothing, really and concretely, to no longer rely on any vision, program or energy whatsoever, that the truth is revealed in its entirety, with evidence and ease, and here you are indeed observing that there was, above all, a need to do nothing about it. I insist on this notion of simplicity. Because all those who have experienced it can testify to it without any difficulty. You can only laugh at yourself, because life here as elsewhere is only a great burst of laughter, whatever the apparent suffering. I fully understand that at the level of the person, the elements of body consciousness can be at break simply by the diversion of energy by your attention, since you think about your pain, you think about your suffering, you think about the causes. But today, as far as the light is concerned, forget all this. This does not mean that you should not be treated, it does not mean that you should not see the competent people. What I'm simply telling you is that there's another layer beyond that just wants to appear. This does not provide you with care, but it puts you in the conditions, as you say, of embracement and abandonment, of sacrifice and finally of beatitude. Silence. Beloved participant, can you explain to us, ABBA, this position of the body when beatitude sets in? The body automatically moves into a particular position, the legs stretch and spread, and the arms extended on either side of the body also move away from the body. For you it happens like that, it's not a constant. But nevertheless, since you're talking about what is happening to you in relation to this beatitude, from the moment this beatitude circulates in you, the position of spread arms extended to 90 degrees and legs spread, allows you to reunite not the 3 in 1, but the movement of life, that is, the 5 in 1. This was called the 5 movements in Chinese medicine. The head, left hand, left foot, right foot. If you reproduce this wheel with your body, and we have used the postures of the body for years, at the time of the celestial wedding and then through the yoga of unity, the yoga of truth, through the archangelical blessings, a set of protocols, because it was formal, a set of techniques, of practices that brought you to superconsciousness. So today, all this is not outdated, all this is still valid, but I sincerely think that you have something else to do than that. You have to be true in a moment and that's all. It is obvious. Look at the testimonies of brothers and sisters, whatever their previous path, those who discover this nothing and live it, know that they lack nothing, because they are everything, being nothing here. Everything else is just a movie, everything else is just a distraction. Beatitude, some of you live in privileged moments of vibration, of course, being at rest. But you will see, as with joy, that this beatitude will become your nature if the time that is counted allows us the opportunity to do so. At that moment, you will grasp the illusion of creation because beatitude, as we have said, as well as joy, takes everything, and it is by taking everything that you become nothing. And by becoming nothing, you discover that you are each other, that you are the worlds, that you are the universes, that you are the first cause and that all this is only passing and does not represent any substance in relation to joy or beatitude that does not depend on any reason and is, therefore simply your essential nature beyond any world. The junction, what I have called the fusion of being and non-being, or if you prefer, the fusion between what you believe and what you really are, is actualized in each and every one of you and even, and especially, in those of you who say that you are not experiencing anything. It is precisely by living what you would call a question about not living anything that will create this tension towards abandonment. At that moment, when you have exhausted all strategies, all you will have left is the embracement, only the truth. And it goes very fast, and it goes faster and faster. Many elements will punctuate your life, because you will notice that from the moment you are in the truth, even if it is not the beatitude, but simply, I would say, the perception of your chest, for those who feel it in any aspect whatsoever. Whether it is simply oppression, the feeling of a black hole, the perception of the ascending crown or anything else, the breathing of the heart, for example, the Marian channel that joins the heart, it will no longer even matter to you. Because at that moment, you will experience that the most important thing is not the vibration, nor the vision, but only the joy and the beatitude, and that this really and concretely fulfills you. And don't forget the resonance effect, the effect that is not communication. We are not here communicating, we are here resonating and connecting, through reliance and not relationship. We are liberating by this resonance, each one who liberates himself liberates another. You do not need to know who it is, you do not need to have any intention, just to live it. The rest is actually done not by your will or by your action, but by the intelligence of the light. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Voice. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind, it's almost crazy. I'm afraid, because a lot of things come up in me, a lot of sadness. At times like these, I value what people think about me or what I think they think. This generates a great deal of suffering, to the point of no longer knowing what I am or who I am and whether others are ultimately right. That is, I feel like I'm not worth much. Well, when you're not worth anything, then you'll be free. It's the game of resonance. You don't know where you stand anymore, you lose your bearings. There will only be one landmark left, the one in the center of your chest. I have said it and I repeat it to you, whatever the intensity, today, of what you are going through, pleasant as well as unpleasant, it is only the circumstances that led you to the truth. Settle in your heart, you say it yourself, it is your own thoughts that put you in this state. You can't think with the heart doesn't think. By the same token, you see where you have carried the predominant pole. The predominant pole here too is the head. I'm not even talking about the mind, I'm just talking about thoughts, conceptions. Forget all that. From the moment you are leaning, if I may say so, towards the present moment, not the present moment of your life with its painful circumstances, but what this present moment in the middle of your chest, or this zero time, can be, and it will reveal itself to you. But as long as you feed, you say it yourself, your thoughts will lead you nowhere. Thought is useful in this world to act, but not for the light. The light needs no thought, no plan, no strategy. That's what life is all about. This is how you are no longer your life and become life. And the forces of resistance, of friction, that suffering represents, whether in the head or in the body, are precisely the pretext for the light to come to illuminate and replace this fire by friction with the fire of truth. This is valid for every part of the body, it is valid for your conscience, it is absolutely valid for everything. This had been called, I remind you, to put love in front. But there, you don't have to put it in front or behind, because you're and it happens in the heart of your heart. It's another layer, it's something different and yet so unitary. It is by living this that you will truly understand, by having accepted to go through any suffering in the same way that you go through moments of joy without holding them back, by leaving them free, that you free yourself. This is what I had named and which had been named before me, spontaneity, transparency, the way of childhood and innocence, the little way of terrorisy. Today, as I believe it had already been said the previous year, there was no more effective way, no more direct way than the way of childhood, as Teresi had expressed it, as she experienced it when she was incarnate. Everything else, from now on, only delays you, only obstructs you, even if it is precisely this, these vibratory elements, these elements of visions, these elements of experience, that have brought you to this day. In the same way that the entire intergalactic confederation of free worlds has ceased to express itself since January 29th, not to deprive you of anything, but to truly restore your autonomy and freedom. In order to find each other, at some point. And for that, you had to feel what you were missing, you had to discover true freedom, that which does not depend on any teaching, any light conceived as external. But we told you from the beginning, even if you saw them outside, whether it was the Archangel Enel or others, they were you beforehand. And today, they are revealed, no longer through words and speeches, no longer through a presence that you would feel outside, but through this nakedness of your heart, through this joy, through this beatitude. It is no longer a question of communication, of channels, whatever words you use, it is a resonance. It is not a question of providing you with information, except to explain, perhaps, some of the things you're experiencing in this world. But above all, you need to trust yourself, you need to live, not to believe, but to live. Everything else is just obstructing. Everything that has held you can no longer help you because you are above, but it is a way of speaking. Above all the speakers, whatever their prestigious names or prestigious passages on earth, whatever the archetype they represent, there is no other way to live that all this is already in you since the beginning. And for this to happen, external referencing, to history, to vibrations, to visions, must disappear on their own by the intelligence of the light. Then you just have to not hold them back, you just have to stop using them, you just have to give up the weapons of consciousness. Silence. Beloved. Voice. There was a small follow-up to his question, but that's what you actually said. I always answer before the question, but go ahead. Laughs. Voice. Yes, she also says. I also realize the absurdity of these words in the eyes of the heart. But it's sometimes very difficult, I am afraid to flinch in a form of depression. But it's not. Beloved, you have the lucidity. What more can I tell you? Everything that is a suffering element, everything that is a disturbing element, only passes through. Fear is distilled by what is left of people and habits like everyone else. But the encouragement comes from the growing experience, in mass and in number, of our brothers and sisters who are experiencing the same thing. If one lives it, the other can live it. Taking up a historical reference, Christ said, "What I do, you will do, and much greater." The truth will set you free. That's exactly what's happening right now, no matter what you think and no matter how much resistance or suffering, or fear. Fear, as you said, as I just explained to you, disappears in front of the intensity of the heart. And for that, the good news is that you don't have to oppose or fight against it. You just have to accept what you know, even if it is still unknown to you within the person. The eternity of your heart, the eternity of the beatitude, beyond all people. Voice. And finally she said, "Is it a light of light? How long will this last?" Until the final moment. Laughs. Every day, even if it seems to you today, except for those who are experiencing it, of course, every day will see joy grow and open up to more and more brothers and sisters. The same goes for beatitude. And you're all going to resonate, you're all going to resonate, you're all going to resonate. At that time, for you individually, and collectively, everything will also be accomplished. The event will be there. That was said, everything that has to happen will happen, no matter what you do. What must not happen will not happen, no matter what you do. Freedom is not about having a choice. Freedom means accepting that there is only light and that you have no choice but to be free from all people, from all dimensions, from all forms. Everything else is just cinema passing through. Beloved. Voice. There are no further questions at this time and we have about 15 minutes left. So we listen to those who want to share among you, to testify, to question. And if nothing emerges during this last quarter of an hour, ABBA invites you to return, each of you, to resonance, simply by asking you, by listening to the silence, without asking anything and especially without waiting for anything. Just be there, whether it's here in this room or elsewhere, whether it's live or when you read it or hear it. Silence. Beloved Abbas, ABBA who is speaking will now withdraw. I would simply ask you to stay, here or elsewhere, for a few minutes. Demonstrating to you that ABBA has nothing to do with it, but that each ABBA has something to do with it. I leave you in the silence of resonance, in the silence of reliance, in the great silence of truth that leads to great joy. Just be there. Do not seek anything to perceive, feel or see. Just be there. As for me, I'll see you tomorrow for the rest. I would simply say that at the end, when the exercise is not an exercise, this life exercise will end. Silence. Everyone at your own pace. When you want, you can open your eyes, when you want. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Through Jean-Luc Ayoun. Les Transformations. Transcript. Agape Team. Translation. LMF.